Imagine a kingdom, smaller than many modern countries. Yet, its power stretched so far that no map of the era could hold it. From the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean. From the deserts of Africa to the snowy peaks of New Zealand. Its flag was already flying when dawn broke. This was Britain, at the height of its ambition. An empire whose reach stunned the world. Behind that glittering display of global power, there were rivalries and tensions. Over the time, those tensions grew, until they plunged the world into its first global war. This is the history of a small island kingdom, barely 94,000 square miles, that rose to become the most powerful empire the world had ever known. And at its peak, it ruled roughly a quarter of the planet's land, and hundreds of millions of people across more than 60 modern countries. And that very success set the stage for the First World War. In the late 1400s and early 1500s, European kingdoms were racing to find new sea routes for trade. Britain was rich in ambition, but did not have enough land. It saw opportunity on the oceans. Spices, silk, and gold meant wealth, while overseas bases meant security. At that time, Spain and Portugal held what was almost a duopoly over the known ocean routes. Backed by the 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas, the two powers had effectively carved the non-European world between them. Portugal controlled the rich sea lanes to Asia around Africa, and Spain dominated the Americas. Private investors and the crown-funded explorers and merchants started to break that monopoly. They not only challenged their exclusive control of trade, but also opened doors for Britain's own global ventures. Britain's first tentative steps onto the world stage began at the end of the 15th century. In 1497, the Venetian navigator John Cabot sailed under the English flag and explored the fog-bound coast of Newfoundland, planting England's earliest claims in the New World. A century later, in 1600, merchants in London secured a royal charter for the East India Company. It was a private trading venture. It grew so powerful that it eventually commanded its own private army, larger than many national forces. Only a few years after that, in 1607, settlers established Jamestown in Virginia, the first English colony in North America to survive. From there, Britain's ambitions spread south into the Caribbean islands such as Barbados and Jamaica. Sugar plantations flourished. It poured wealth into English coffers. Behind these ventures stood an increasingly formidable navy. Victories over Spain, most famously the defeat of the mighty Spanish Armada in 1588, had given England command of the seas and the muscle to defend its growing empire. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757, India the East India Company tightened its hold on Bengal, and then, step by step, extended its influence across most of the Indian subcontinent. In North America, Britain expanded its reach after victory in the 7 Years' War. Yet, only a generation later, it lost the 13 colonies in the American Revolution of 1776. Far to the south, settlement in Australia began in 1788. In the decades that followed, the signing of Maori treaties and a series of gold rushes drew more settlers to New Zealand as well. During the 19th century, the scramble for Africa brought territories such as Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa under British control. in the Middle East and Asia. Britain secured strategic ports. Hong Kong in 1842. And influence over the Suez Canal after 1869. It tightened its grip on global trade routes. By the late 1800s, Britain ruled roughly a quarter of the planet's land. And hundreds of millions of people. But conquering territory had only been the beginning. Governing such a vast and varied empire proved an even greater challenge. By the 19th century, the British Empire had grown into a vast and complicated mosaic. It was not a single, uniform system of government, but a patchwork of arrangements, each reflecting local circumstances and Britain's own strategic needs. Some territories were crown colonies. They ruled directly from London. There, a governor appointed by the British government acted as the king or the queen's voice. Laws, taxes, and even day-to-day administration were shaped to serve the empire's interests, often with little say from the people who lived there. Others, such as Canada and Australia, were known as dominions. These lands, settled largely by Europeans, gradually gained their own parliaments and a degree of self-government, though they still pledged loyalty to the British monarch. In these places, Britain's grip was lighter, allowing local leaders to manage domestic affairs while London retained control of defense and foreign policy. India's story was different again. For over a century, the powerful East India Company acted almost like a state in its own right, collecting taxes and commanding a private army to protect its trade. But after the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the British government dissolved company rule and imposed the British Raj. It placed the entire subcontinent under direct imperial control. To tighten its hold, Britain poured resources into railways, ports, telegraph lines, and courts of law. These projects are often celebrated as signs of progress, but their primary purpose was to speed the movement of troops, move raw materials to the coast, and enforce British authority. And wherever British rule settled in, resistance followed. From the uprising in India to repeated revolts in Africa and unrest in Ireland, local peoples challenged the empire's power again and again. The British Empire might have appeared unshakable, but beneath the surface its subjects never stopped testing its strength. Britain stood at the peak of global power. Yet across Europe, rival nations were growing restless. The next chapter reveals how competition and alliances set the stage for a conflict that would engulf the world. Don't miss how rivalries turn into war. Subscribe so you're ready for part 2.